hold Iraq together, the integrity of the country, and eliminate the presence of outside terrorist forces that are ripping it apart.
In light of what's been boiling in Iraq these last few days, there was no doubt the Obama administration would have to do something. And with the Benghazi debacle still ringing in their ears, the American embassy in Baghdad has become the first focal point in what will be an expanding effort to save this nation. We're going to put this all together for you here, and please remember what the Secretary of State just said. Welcome back to Midpoint, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Now let's also welcome in former member of the U.S. Marine Corps, military analyst, and one who has been there, done that, and knows the program. Pleasure to welcome Jessie Jane Duff back to the program. Jessie Jane, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Here we go. We got a lot of stuff happening today. And before we get to the Secretary's comments, I want to get your take on the story that is breaking right now. A suspected terrorist linked to the Benghazi terror attack that killed 4 Americans captured inside Libya by U.S. forces currently is en route to the United States. Your first reaction?
You know, why are we acting surprised? This is something that we have seen coming for the multiple years. We have seen terrorists breaking in through our borders. We're going to see terrorists coming back at us, and they have warned us, they have shown us, and they have demonstrated such egregious efforts to destroy our Western way of life. So, you know, I'm sitting back thinking to myself, what has happened? We've done everything to prevent this for the last 5, 6, 7 years, even 10 years since September 11th. And what have we done? We've allowed everything to deteriorate to a point where now we are threatened again.
Let's get to the actual arrest, the investigation here. Apparently, they've been going on the special mission. They've been planning it. The special mission happened on Friday night, captured south of Benghazi. Now, this is a terrorist who had been giving media interviews, but has been a little reticent to appear in front of the cameras here recently. Now, a couple things here. What about those people who would say this was going to happen because the Obama administration, certainly they were doing something in secret, certainly they were going to take this step, that maybe we shouldn't be surprised that they have at least found one person involved in the attacks?
Well, essentially, we've got bigger issues right now. We've got Mr. Baghdadi, who's in charge of the ISIS, and he essentially has told the United States in 2012, I'll see you in New York. He is going to plan on every level, if he can, to attack us. ISIS is no joke. They are spreading now from Damascus all the way to Baghdad. Essentially, that is a land coverage, a mass area that we have no control over. And essentially, not only have they gotten a lot of play within Syria, now we have to worry about whether they will go outside of their borders and start attacking various Western interests, including the United States. Mr. Baghdadi has made it very, very clear that he is an enemy of the U.S. He is a PhD. He understands, he's intelligent, and he is basically the replacement for Osama bin Laden.
Let me get your comments now militarily, if you will, on the other story here. Apparently, the ISIS group, they are now less than 40 miles north of Baghdad. Gun battles erupting in the city right now. It's only about a 45-minute drive from the capital right now. Are you shocked at all that they are getting this close to Baghdad? Because the more we learn about ISIS, this is not just a bunch of guys riding camels in the desert. These are individuals who are very well prepared. They are monetarily very well prepared. They have prepared for this. They're even on social media right now using it to their advantage. So in essence, we shouldn't be shocked that they are advancing this quickly, should we?
Well, what's really disturbing to me is that we saw Fallujah fall in January. We saw Mosul fall. And then we sit back and think they're going to stop there. Okay, so the army in the northern region of Iraq was not as well prepared. Essentially, the U.S. had not visited with them in the last 3 to 4 years. We have trained the Iraqi army with $60 billion. I do expect that the Iraqi army based out of Baghdad is going to put up a much greater fight. When Mosul was hit by ISIS, essentially those army soldiers had fled. They were not capable, nor were they able to sustain themselves. And that could be seen as a demonstration of a lack of our training on our part, because we did make the agreement to train them. But the fact that this is happening and we're not prepared for this, and President Obama is out playing golf, I'm very, very disturbed, because too many American men and women died on the soil. Our blood is in their sand, and for us to not have reacted when Fallujah was taken is beyond me. We did nothing, and that was back in January. It's June now. 6 months. We had 6 months to prepare for this.
Now, you talked about the forces in Baghdad. Let me bring this out here right now. It's not quite clear, apparently this time, the Obama administration reportedly considering sending up to 100 Special Forces troops to advise and train Iraqi troops. We don't know when they would arrive in Iraq. The troops would fall under the authority of the U.S. ambassador in Baghdad and would not be authorized to engage in combat. You've been on the ground before. You know what it's like to be in a firefight and in some sort of a war situation. Isn't it almost pie in the sky to be able to say, we're just going to send them in and they're just going to advise? We have no idea what's going to happen. And still, you are in a war situation, correct?
Yes, essentially I have not personally been in a firefight, although I'm trained to fire weapons and to attack. I've only been trained in defensive measures, which is critical as Marines. We're all trained in weapons handling. I know enough about combat to understand, though, that for us to send people in there for training, what happened in the last 3-4 years, in which since we pulled out since 2011, what happened? They should already be trained. When we pulled out without a SOFA agreement, that was the first egregious mistake. The second thing is just ending a war doesn't mean you've completed your mission. We pulled out, we've left things hanging, and obviously they have been ill prepared. So when your terms of engagement are only to train, you're not allowing these people to fire upon the enemy without receiving strict orders to do such. I think you're limiting and tying the hands of those Marines and soldiers that are going to be going in there. We have a fast team that's going in to stabilize our embassy, which is critical. We have multiple American personnel in that region. We have a lot of people, about 5,000 in the green zone. So essentially, I do believe that when the Marines are showing up in that fast team, the ISIS is going to be very cautious about approaching them, because these men are very well trained and will be very aggressive, and they're not going to run, because Marines go towards the sounds of bullets. They do not run from them.
Here's the thing about training, though, and I will say there's a lot of people who are asking this question right now. Supposedly, the American military has been involved in training the Iraqi forces to care for themselves, to defend their country. Now we are being told by the White House that we are considering sending more troops in to train the Iraqi forces to defend themselves. Why didn't it work the first time? There's people asking, we're still doing this? We're still training?
You know, it really boils down to, we spent $60 billion to train their army. President Obama told the American public that we are leaving that country with a stable government and a stable army. That's not true.
Well, where did that $60 billion go, Jessie Jane? Here's the next thing. Where did that $60 billion go is what Americans want to know. If it went to training forces and they can't take care of themselves, what did it buy us?
Well, essentially, I do believe that our Marines, soldiers, and airmen, and everyone else involved in training the Iraqi soldiers probably did their job to the best of their ability.
Absolutely.
I think the $60 billion was absolutely spent wisely. The problem is when you pull out. Just ending a war doesn't mean you've completed your mission. This is Vietnam all over again. What we have to ensure that we do, just like we did in South Korea and we did in Germany, you left a stabilizing force. That would intimidate anyone on the al-Qaeda side from coming in and sweeping up on the Sunnis who are disgruntled. And also, Maliki, their president has not been good to the Sunnis, and he's only kind of incited the fire within those who want to join up with the ISIS. So really, we should have stood back. We should have allowed some of our troops to remain over there, not in a war fighting capacity, but in a defensive measure. Now we've got Abrams tanks, we've got M1s that have been supposedly confiscated. We have Russian tanks that have supposedly been confiscated. We have various weapons arsenals that have been taken. So now we're sitting back looking at this and saying, what happened? We left. We should have ensured that we kept a stabilizing force there until everything's settled. You just can't pull out and say that you're done. I'm not recommending we have troops on the ground and still fighting, but I've got Marines, soldiers, and airmen that have written to me, and sailors who have lost life and limb over this, and they are disgruntled and upset that their brothers and sisters died in vain. They're disgruntled that we spent $1.7 trillion on this war, and to come back and see it fall through. Don't make our effort in vain, Mr. President. Finish the job, and you should have paid attention when Fallujah fell, when Mosul fell, but no, now we're acting surprised. And meanwhile, you send a message to the American public that Father's Day was more important out in Palm Springs playing golf. Perception is the veteran and military members' reality. We're on the front lines. We know that the USW Bush, H.W. Bush, is going into the Gulf. We know that we've got fast teams going in there, and yet you're playing golf. Send the message that this is serious business, because right now we're not seeing that from the White House.
All right, about 90 seconds left here. We've had some guests on the show here today who have given us their opinion regarding America possibly working with Iran. Two guests have already said to us, people who know the Middle East well, they have said absolutely not. Do not work with the Iranians. You cannot trust them. Get out. Let them settle their own disputes, because we have no reason being there in the first place. With all due respect to the people who were there before, they're saying it's time to just wash our hands and walk away. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the Iranians have an invested interest with the Sunni. That's what or the Shia, I'm sorry. And they don't want to see the Sunni overthrowing the Shia. So they do have an interest there. However, we cannot negotiate with the Iranians and modify any of our nuclear defense information that we've tried to negotiate and ensure that we do not compromise what we've made on their nuclear stand. That's the first thing. The second thing is with Iran is that it shows how far our diplomatic policy has lowered itself when we are starting to negotiate with the Iranians. We really have hit an all-time low when they are our last resort. This says we were not proactive, we are now reactive. I'm sorry, when you want to secure this nation, you better be proactive. You cannot be reactive because the enemy sees your weakness and they will cut your throat.
Okay, 10 seconds then. Would you say yes or no to working with the Iranians?
I don't say we work with them. I say that we can utilize them, but we cannot work with them.
That is indeed what many people are thinking as well. Jessie Jane Duff, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
We are getting a tremendous amount of opinions on this. We're going to turn this over to social media here because you're hearing back and forth here. Some people saying, do this, wash your hands, walk away. Tell us on Twitter, tell us in email, tell us on Facebook, tell us exactly what you think, but tell us why. Because here on Midpoint, every day, we question everything.